The last chance. Harper Blake stared at the rejection letter for the third time that week, her fingers trembling as she held the expensive stationery. Another bank? Another no? Her grandmother's bakery, Sweet Maple Corner, was 3 months behind on rent. The landlord had stopped returning her calls with anything but threats. The charity gala invitation sat beside the letter, gold embossed and impossibly elegant. Her former culinary school roommate, Jennifer, had sent it with a hastily scrawled note on the back saying that half of Manhattan's investors would be there. It was a lifeline Harper couldn't afford to ignore. Even if she didn't have a proper dress or the confidence to walk into a room full of people who probably spent more on shoes than she made in a month. The grand entrance, the Metropolitan Celestial Hotel, lived up to its name. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from cathedral ceilings, casting rainbow prisms across marble floors so polished Harper could see her reflection. Women glided past in designer gowns, their jewelry catching the light like captured stars. Men in tailored tuxedos discussed deals over champagne that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Harper smoothed down her borrowed navy dress. Simple, a line that Jennifer had insisted looked elegant. It felt anything but elegant, surrounded by haute couture and casual wealth. She clutched her small portfolio containing photos of her bakery's creations, recipes that had been in her family for 3 generations, and a business plan she'd rewritten 17 times. The evening started promisingly. She'd managed to exchange cards with 2 venture capitalists, though their eyes had glazed over when she mentioned artisanal baking. One woman had actually laughed, suggesting Harper try a crowdfunding site instead. Then she saw him. The man in the corner. He stood near the terrace doors, holding a glass of something amber that he hadn't touched in the 15 minutes Harper had been watching. Tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair styled in that perfect, casual way that took effort to look effortless. His tuxedo fit like it had been painted on, every line precise and deliberate, but it was his face that made Harper's breath catch. Strong jawline, eyes the color of winter storms, and an expression of such profound boredom that he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He checked his watch twice, scanned the room with barely concealed impatience, and maintained a careful distance from the clusters of conversation around him. Everything about him screamed expensive, professional, and slightly out of place, just like the escorts Jennifer had gossiped about during their planning meetings. Rich socialites hired them for events like these, arm candy to avoid awkward questions about their personal lives. Harper's heart sank as she spotted her ex-boyfriend, Travis, across the room. He stood with a willowy blonde draped on his arm, both of them laughing too loudly at something that probably wasn't funny. Travis, who had told Harper that her dreams were too small, that she'd never amount to anything more than a baker in a failing shop, that she wasn't sophisticated enough for his world. The old hurt flared, followed quickly by anger. She'd spent 6 months rebuilding her confidence after their breakup. 6 months reminding herself that she was enough, that her dreams mattered. But seeing him here, looking successful and smug, made all those affirmations feel hollow. An idea formed, reckless and completely unlike her. The proposition. Harper's heels clicked against the marble. As she approached the mysterious man, up close, he was even more devastating. A small scar cut through his left eyebrow, and his eyes held depths that suggested complicated thoughts behind that bored exterior. "Excuse me," Harper said, proud that her voice came out steady. "I have a strange request." He turned those storm-gray eyes on her, one eyebrow raising slightly. "I'm listening." His voice was deep, with a hint of gravel that sent unexpected warmth through her chest. "I need you to pretend to be my date." The words tumbled out before courage could abandon her. "Just for tonight. I'll pay your rate, whatever it is. I just need my ex-boyfriend over there to think I've moved on to someone impressive." Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. Surprise? Amusement? He set down his untouched drink with deliberate care. "You think I'm an escort?" It wasn't a question. Harper's face flamed. "Aren't you? I mean, you're standing alone. You look like you're waiting for someone. And you're clearly not enjoying yourself." Astute observations. A smile played at the corner of his lips, dangerous and intriguing. What makes you think I'd agree to this? Because you look as miserable as I feel? Harper answered honestly. And because I'm desperate enough to ask a complete stranger for help, which means I really need it. He studied her for a long moment, those gray eyes seeming to catalog every detail of her face. Then he held out his hand. My name is Dominic, and I'll help you, but not for money. Then why? Harper asked, taking his hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm but gentle. Let's call it curiosity. Dominic's smile deepened, transforming his face from merely handsome to absolutely magnetic. It's been a long time since anyone approached me without an agenda I could predict. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, Harper admitted, allowing him to lead her toward the dance floor. The orchestra shifted into something slow and romantic. Dominic's hand settled on her waist with confident familiarity, his other hand enfolding hers. They moved together with surprising ease, as if they'd danced together 1,000 times before. So tell me about this ex-boyfriend who inspired such a desperate plan, Dominic said. His breath warm against her ear, Harper caught sight of Travis staring at them. His expression somewhere between shock and jealousy. Satisfaction bloomed in her chest. His name is Travis Reynolds. We dated for 2 years. He worked in finance, thought he was destined for greatness, and believed I was holding him back from it. And were you? No. Harper met Dominic's eyes. I was building something real while he chased prestige. He left me for someone who looked better on his arm at company events. Said I wasn't ambitious enough. Dominic's hand tightened slightly on her waist. He sounds like an idiot. Thank you for saying that. Not being polite. Anyone who couldn't see your value doesn't deserve a second thought. He spun her gently. And Harper laughed despite herself. You don't know anything about me. I know you own a bakery called Sweet Maple Corner. At her surprised look, he gestured to the portfolio tucked under her arm. The logo is visible. I know you came here tonight hoping to save something you love. I know you're brave enough to approach strangers and honest enough to admit when you're desperate. That tells me plenty. Harper's throat tightened. What about you? Why are you really here if you're not an escort? That, Dominic said with a mysterious smile, is a much longer story. The confrontation the song ended, but Dominic didn't release her. Instead, he guided her toward the bar, ordering sparkling water for both of them. His hand remained possessively on the small of her back, a gesture that felt both natural and electrifying. Harper? She turned to find Travis standing behind them, his date nowhere in sight. His eyes moved between Harper and Dominic with barely concealed confusion. Travis. Harper kept her voice neutral. What do you want? I just wanted to say hello. I didn't expect to see you here. His gaze fixed on Dominic with poorly masked jealousy. This is quite the upgrade. Dominic stepped forward, his presence suddenly intimidating despite his calm expression. I don't believe we've been introduced. Though from Harper's description, I feel like I know you already. Really? Travis's smile was forced. All good things, I hope. No, Dominic said simply. Mostly just that you made the mistake of letting her go. But your loss is someone else's gain. Harper watched Travis's face redden, caught between wanting to defend himself and not wanting to cause a scene. Finally, he muttered something about finding his date and disappeared into the crowd. That was incredible, Harper breathed. Thank you. Dominic turned back to her, his expression softer now. You didn't need me. You could have handled him yourself. Maybe, but it felt good to have backup. Harper studied his face, seeing past the perfect exterior to something genuine underneath. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. He reached up, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate, careful, and sent shivers down Harper's spine. Tell me about your bakery. The real story, not the elevator pitch. And surrounded by strangers and wealth she'd never possess. Harper found herself talking to this mysterious man about flour ratios and her grandmother's secret recipes. About early mornings and the satisfaction of creating something with her own hands. Dominic listened like every word mattered, asked questions that showed he actually understood. And somewhere between the champagne fountain and the chocolate sculpture centerpiece, Harper forgot this was supposed to be pretend. The revelation begins. I should probably tell you something, Dominic said, as the evening wound down. They'd moved to a quieter corner, away from the crowds. His hand still held hers, thumb tracing absent patterns on her palm. What's that? I'm not an escort. I never was. Harper's stomach dropped. Then who are you? Before he could answer, a woman in a crimson gown approached, her smile bright and knowing. Dominic Hayes. I didn't expect to see you at one of these events. Usually your assistant has to drag you kicking and screaming. Dominic's expression shifted, becoming carefully blank. Hello, Patricia. The woman turned to Harper. Has he told you who he is yet, dear? Or is he playing one of his games? Harper's mouth went dry as the pieces began clicking together. The perfect tuxedo. The confident authority. The way people had been watching them all evening, not with curiosity but with recognition. Who is he? Harper asked quietly. Patricia's laugh was like bells. You're joking. This is Dominic Hayes. Hayes Technologies. Forbes 30 under 30. The man who revolutionized cloud computing and made his first billion before turning 28. The world tilted sideways. Harper pulled her hand from Dominic's, taking a step back. You're a billionaire. Yes. His gray eyes held something that might have been regret. I was going to tell you. When? After I humiliated myself a little more, Harper's face burned. I offered to pay you. Oh my God, I asked a billionaire if he was an escort. Harper, please. Dominic reached for her, but she stepped back again. I need to go. She turned and walked away, her borrowed heels clicking against marble, her vision blurring with tears of mortification. Behind her, she heard Dominic call her name, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Not when her entire evening, every conversation, every moment that had felt real and magical was based on a lie. She'd thought he was just a man. Mysterious, kind, unexpectedly perfect. Instead, he was a billionaire who had let her make a fool of herself for his own amusement. The November air bit cold as Harper stepped outside, flagging down a taxi with shaking hands. As the car pulled away, she caught one last glimpse of Dominic standing in the hotel entrance. His expression devastated, his hand still outstretched like he could call her back. But Harper had learned long ago that fairy tales didn't happen to girls like her. And billionaires definitely didn't fall for struggling bakers who mistook them for hired. Help the morning after Harper's phone had been ringing since 6 in the morning. She'd ignored the first 3 calls, buried her head under her pillow for the next 5, and finally thrown the device across her tiny studio apartment when it hit double digits. Now, at 8:30, she sat on her kitchen floor with a mug of coffee, staring at the 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. Most were from Jennifer, progressing from excited, "Oh my God, you were with Dominic Hayes," to confused, "Why aren't you answering?" 2 concerned, "Harper, please tell me you're okay." 3 were from numbers she didn't recognize, probably reporters based on the preview text she could see, asking for comments about the mystery woman who captured the elusive billionaire's attention. 5 were from Dominic himself. She opened them against her better judgment, reading each one with a mixture of anger and something dangerously close to longing. Please let me explain. You have every right to be angry, but give me a chance to apologize properly. Oh, I wasn't laughing at you. Not once, not ever. The bakery. Sweet Maple Corner on Amsterdam Avenue. I looked it up. Your reviews are incredible. I know I don't deserve it, but please talk to me. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Harper set the phone down, pressing her palms against her eyes. She had to be at the bakery in an hour, had 3 custom cake orders to finish, and absolutely no mental capacity to deal with whatever mess last night had created, uninvited. Guest Sweet Maple Corner occupied a narrow storefront between a vintage bookshop and a family-owned flower stand. The space was small but warm, with exposed brick walls. Mismatched tables Harper had refinished herself, and the constant comforting smell of vanilla and butter. Her grandmother had opened it 40 years ago, and Harper had spent every summer of her childhood here, learning to fold croissant dough and pipe buttercream roses now. As she unlocked the front door at 9:45, she noticed someone already waiting. Her heart stuttered before logic kicked in. Dominic Hayes was far too recognizable to stand on an Amsterdam Avenue sidewalk without causing a scene. This man wore worn jeans, a plain black hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low. But she recognized those gray eyes immediately. "How did you find me?" Harper asked, not moving to let him inside. "You told me the name?" The rest was simple research. Dominic pulled off the cap, running a hand through his hair. Without the tuxedo, he looked younger, more human. Tired, too, with shadows under his eyes that suggested he'd slept as poorly as she had. "I know you said you needed space, but I couldn't leave things like that. You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just didn't correct your assumption." He stepped closer, and Harper forced herself not to retreat. "Harper, I go to maybe 3 events like that a year, and I hate every second of them. People don't see me at those things. They see dollar signs, opportunities, connections. When you approached me thinking I was someone else, it was the first genuine interaction I'd had in months. So you let me make a fool of myself for entertainment?" Pain flashed across his face. "No, God, no. I let myself have one night where someone talked to me like a person. Where someone was honest and funny and real. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world?" Harper's hand shook as she unlocked the door. "I have 3 cakes to finish. If you want to talk, you can talk while I work. But I'm not promising anything." The truth unfolds inside. Harper tied on her apron and began pulling ingredients from the industrial refrigerator. Dominic settled onto one of the mismatched chairs. Looking absurdly out of place in her grandmother's cozy bakery, "My father started Hayes Technologies in our garage when I was 7. Dominic began without prompting. By the time I was 12, we'd moved to a real office. By 15, he'd secured major venture capital. I learned coding before I learned to drive, and everyone told me I was some kind of prodigy." Harper measured flour, not looking at him. "Sounds like a good childhood." "It was lonely. My father loved me, I know that, but he was building an empire. My mother had died when I was young, so it was just us and the company. I had tutors instead of friends, board meetings instead of baseball games." He paused, watching her sift ingredients with practiced efficiency. "When I was 23, my father had a heart attack. The company was public by then, massive, and suddenly I was in charge." "That must have been terrifying," Harper said quietly, beginning to cream butter and sugar. "It was. Everyone expected me to fail. I was too young, too inexperienced, too soft. So I became exactly what they needed me to be. Ruthless, focused, untouchable." His voice went flat. "I built the company into something my father never imagined. Hayes Technologies is worth $73 billion now. We employ 40,000 people. And I haven't had a genuine conversation with someone my own age in 3 years." Harper cracked eggs one-handed, a skill that had taken her months to master. "Why tell me this?" "Because I need you to understand that last night wasn't a game. It was the first time in years that I felt like myself. The real me, not the CEO or the billionaire or the success story. Just Dominic talking to a fascinating woman who made me laugh and challenged me and didn't care about my net worth." Facing the past, Harper slid the first cake into the oven and started on the second, her hands moving with automatic precision while her mind raced. "My grandmother opened this bakery in 1985, she said finally. She'd immigrated from Poland with nothing but her recipes and a dream. My mother grew up here, learning to bake before she could read. When Mom died 8 years ago, Grandma kept the place running until she got too sick to manage it anymore." She glanced at Dominic, who was listening with complete attention. "I took over 3 years ago. I was working in corporate marketing, making decent money, dating Travis, living what I thought was a successful life. But this place was dying, and I couldn't let it go. So I quit everything, ended my lease, moved into that apartment upstairs that's barely big enough for a bed, and threw myself into saving my family's legacy." "And Travis didn't support that?" Dominic said. "Travis thought I was insane. He said I was throwing away my potential for sentimentality, that no one cared about old-fashioned bakeries anymore, that I'd be broke and miserable within a year." Harper's voice cracked. He was almost right. I'm 3 months behind on rent. The health inspector is coming next week, and I need to replace equipment I can't afford. I went to that gala because I'm desperate. And I used you because I wanted 5 minutes where I felt like I'd made the right choice. Dominic stood, moving to the counter. He didn't touch her, but his presence was steady, grounding. You did make the right choice. This place is incredible. The reviews talk about how your croissants taste like memories. How couples come here for their anniversary because you made their wedding cake. How you stayed open during the blackout last winter so the neighborhood kids had somewhere warm. You really read the reviews? I read everything I could find. Harper, you're not failing. You're fighting for something that matters. There's a difference. He hesitated. I know you probably won't believe this, but I understand what that's like. My father's last words to me were, "Don't let the company become just about money." I've spent 5 years trying to honor that while everyone pushes me to maximize profits over people. Harper studied his face, searching for deception and finding only exhaustion and honesty. Why are you really here, Dominic? You could have any woman in New York. Why chase down a baker who embarrassed herself? Because you're the first person in years who looked at me and saw something worth knowing beyond my bank account. He smiled sadly. And because when you walked away last night, I realized I just let the most interesting thing in my life disappear. The complication before Harper could respond, the bell above the door chimed. She looked up to see Travis walk in, perfectly groomed in a designer suit, his expression smug. Harper, I thought I'd find you here. His eyes landed on Dominic, and his smile widened. And you brought your boyfriend? How cozy. What do you want, Travis? Harper asked, returning to her cake with forced calm. I wanted to warn you. See, I have friends in media, and there are some very interesting articles coming out today about you and Mr. Hayes here. Speculation about gold digging, questions about how a nobody baker landed a billionaire, suggestions that maybe you're not quite what you seem. Travis leaned against the counter. It's going to damage his reputation, being associated with someone so obviously beneath his station. I thought I'd give you a chance to end this gracefully before it gets worse. Harper's stomach turned cold. She'd been so focused on her own embarrassment that she hadn't considered what their public appearance might mean for Dominic. But Dominic surprised her. He moved around the counter, positioning himself between Harper and Travis with deceptive casualness. You know what's fascinating about my position? I have an entire legal team whose job is protecting me from people who spread false narratives. And I have enough resources to make life very uncomfortable for anyone who tries to hurt people I care about. Are you threatening me? Travis's confidence wavered. I'm telling you facts. Harper is an accomplished businesswoman with a loyal customer base and a reputation for excellence. If anyone suggests otherwise, they'll hear from my lawyers. If you're behind these articles, you'll wish you'd never heard my name. Dominic's voice was pleasant, almost friendly, but there was steel underneath. Now I suggest you leave before I decide to look into exactly how you've been conducting your own business dealings. Travis's face reddened. He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and stalked out without another word. Harper sagged against the counter, her hands shaking. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. No one threatens you. Not while I'm around. The oven timer beeped. Harper pulled out the first cake, perfectly golden, and set it to cool. Her mind whirled with questions, fears, possibilities. I can't be part of your world, she said finally. I can't handle photographers and speculation and people picking apart everything I do. I barely survived Travis making me feel small. I won't survive the entire internet doing it, Dominic nodded slowly. I understand, but can I offer an alternative? What? Let me be part of yours instead. At her confused look, he continued. I hate galas and board meetings. I hate the performative nature of my position. But this. He gestured around the bakery. This is real. This matters. What if I just came here sometimes? No photographers, no pressure. Just a guy who likes good coffee and better conversation. That's all you want? For now? Yes. Let me prove that I'm not the person you think I am. Let me show you that I value what you've built, not as an investor or a benefactor, but as someone who genuinely cares. His gray eyes held hers. You don't have to trust me yet. Just give me the chance to earn it. Harper's chest tightened. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. Billionaires and bakers didn't mix, that she'd only get hurt. But the part of her that had taken a dying bakery and breathed new life into it, the part that had approached a stranger at a gala, the part that still believed in taking risks, knew what she had to say. "Okay, but I have rules." A smile broke across Dominic's face, transforming him. "Name them. Sending money or investors or miraculous solutions to my problems. If this place survives, it's because I saved it." "Agreed. No special treatment. If you're here, you're just another customer. I wouldn't want it any other way. If you break my heart, I'm putting you in the commercial oven." She said it lightly, but they both heard the real fear underneath. Dominic reached across the counter, taking her flour-dusted hand in his. "Harper, I can't promise I won't make mistakes. This is all new to me. Real relationships, honest conversations, being vulnerable. But I can promise I'll try. Every single day, I'll try to be worthy of your trust. That's all I can ask." The beginning of something real. For the next 2 weeks, Dominic became a regular fixture at Sweet Maple Corner. He arrived at 7 each morning before the shop opened and helped Harper prep for the day. He couldn't bake to save his life, burned 3 batches of cookies, and once accidentally used salt instead of sugar, but his terrible attempts made Harper laugh until her sides hurt. He learned the names of her regulars. Mrs. Chen, who bought a raspberry Danish every Tuesday. The college students who studied at the corner table for hours over a single coffee. The young couple saving for a wedding cake, coming in weekly to taste samples they couldn't quite afford yet. And slowly, carefully, Harper learned about Dominic. She learned that he'd taught himself 6 programming languages before graduating high school, that his father had loved jazz music and old westerns, that Dominic still visited his mother's grave every month, bringing fresh flowers and telling her about the company, that he'd created an anonymous scholarship fund for kids whose parents couldn't afford computer science. Education, she learned that beneath the billions and the business empire was someone fundamentally lonely, desperately searching for connection, and terrified of being wanted only for what he could provide rather than who he was. One morning, 3 weeks after the gala, Harper arrived to find Dominic already inside. He'd somehow acquired a key, which they'd need to discuss, and he wasn't alone. A severe-looking woman in her 50s sat at one of the tables reviewing documents. "Harper, this is Rebecca Chen, my chief legal counsel," Dominic said. "Rebecca, this is Harper Blake." Harper's stomach dropped. "What's going on?" Rebecca stood, offering a hand. "Ms. Blake, I've reviewed your lease agreement and financial situation. Your landlord is attempting to force you out through harassment and invalid penalties. With your permission, I'd like to file an injunction and renegotiate your terms." "I can't afford a lawyer," Harper said flatly. "You're not paying me. Volunteering my time." At Harper's suspicious look, Rebecca smiled slightly. Dominic made it very clear that any help had to be legitimate and that you had to maintain complete control. "I'm simply evening the playing field against a landlord who's breaking several housing laws." Harper looked at Dominic. "You promised no special treatment." "This isn't special treatment. This is making sure you're not being taken advantage of." His expression was earnest. "Rebecca does pro bono work regularly. She was already looking for a new case. I just mentioned your situation, but if you don't want her help, I'll tell her to drop it." Harper wavered. Pride warred with pragmatism. "What would this cost me?" "Nothing financially," Rebecca said. "But I'd want to use your case as precedent. For other small business owners facing similar situations, your bakery would be mentioned in filings. Is that acceptable?" It was a way to help that didn't diminish Harper's agency, a way to fight back that she'd earned. Slowly, Harper nodded. "Okay, thank you." Rebecca gathered her papers. "I'll be in touch." "And Ms. Blake, I've tried your lemon lavender cookies. They're extraordinary. This neighborhood needs places like yours." After she left, Harper turned to Dominic. "That was walking a very fine line, I know. But I couldn't watch you lose this place because of a corrupt landlord. Not when I could help without taking over." He pulled her close, and Harper let herself lean into his warmth. "Tell me if I overstepped." "You didn't. This time." She pulled back to look at him. "But Dominic, this can't be how we solve every problem. You swooping in with lawyers and resources? I know. I'm learning. He kissed her forehead. Teach me. Show me how to be supportive without being overwhelming. And Harper realized that despite every logical reason to protect herself, she was falling for this complicated, wealthy, surprisingly humble man who burned cookies and made her laugh and looked at her like she was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. The storm breaks, the articles hit on a Tuesday. Harper was icing a birthday cake when Jennifer burst through the door, tablet in hand, her expression panicked. Harper, you need to see this. The first article was bad. Mystery baker snags tech. Billionaire. Calculating courtship or genuine connection. It included photos from the gala, speculation about Harper's motives, and a detailed breakdown of her financial struggles. The implication was clear. She was a gold digger who targeted Dominic deliberately. The second article was worse. It featured quotes from unnamed sources, people claiming to know Harper from high school or college, describing her as ambitious and manipulative. She recognized the lies immediately. These were Travis's friends, people she'd met once or twice, twisting neutral memories into damning evidence. But the third article made her blood run cold. It detailed her mother's death, her grandmother's illness, the bakery's financial troubles, and suggested Harper was using her tragic backstory to manipulate a grieving billionaire who'd lost his own parents. Her phone rang. Dominic's name flashed on the screen. I've seen them, he said immediately. I'm coming over. No. Harper's voice was steady, cold. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world destroying mine? Harper, please. I need space, Dominic. I need to think. She hung up before he could respond, ignoring the immediate callback. Jennifer watched her with worried eyes. What are you going to do? Her friend asked. Harper stared at the half-finished cake. At the bakery her grandmother had built with her bare hands, at the life she'd fought so hard to create. Then she picked up her piping bag and returned to work. I'm going to ice this cake, and then I'm going to make tomorrow's bread, and then I'm going to decide if loving Dominic Hayes is worth losing everything else. The decision Harper closed the bakery early, something she never did, and walked. She walked through Central Park, past the fountain where street musicians played for tourists, along paths she'd memorized during her lowest moments after Travis. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching under her feet. And the city hummed with its usual indifferent energy. Her phone buzzed constantly. Dominic, Jennifer, numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them all. The truth was complicated. She'd fallen for Dominic, really fallen, in a way that terrified her. But she'd also spent 3 years rebuilding herself from the damage Travis had done. 3 years learning that her worth wasn't determined by someone else's validation. Could she survive being examined by the world? Having every choice questioned, every motive doubted? Could she watch the bakery become a tabloid story instead of a neighborhood treasure? As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Harper found herself at Bethesda Fountain. She sat on the edge, watching the water, and thought about her grandmother. Grandma Zofia had been fierce. She'd left everything familiar to chase a dream in a country where she barely spoke the language. She'd worked 3 jobs to open the bakery. She'd raised a daughter alone after Harper's grandfather died young. And she'd always said, "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Harper. It's deciding that something matters more than fear." Harper pulled out her phone. She had 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, and an email from Rebecca Chen with the subject line, "Good news."
Ow.
She opened the email first. Rebecca had gotten the injunction. The landlord's harassment was documented, and the rent situation was being renegotiated fairly. Harper's bakery was safe, at least for now. Then she opened Dominic's messages, reading them in order. "I'm so sorry. I'll make this right. My PR team is working on responses. We'll sue for defamation. Please talk to me. I can fix this. That's all. I just miss you. Understand if you need to walk away. But know that knowing you has been the best thing to happen to me in years." The last one had been sent an hour ago, and it made Harper's decision for her. The confrontation Harper showed up at Dominic's building at 9 p.m. Still wearing her flour-dusted jeans and bakery t-shirt, the doorman recognized her and waved her through without question, which meant Dominic had added her to his approved list. That small gesture made her chest ache. She rode the elevator to the penthouse, her heart hammering. When the doors opened directly into his apartment, she found Dominic standing at the window wall, staring out at the city. He'd shed his usual casual perfection for rumpled clothing that suggested he'd been wearing it for days. His hair stood at odd angles like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. Harper. He turned, and the relief on his face was almost painful to witness. I didn't think you'd come. We need to talk. I know. I've had my lawyers drafting cease and desist orders. We're going after everyone who published lies. Travis will face consequences for his role in this. I've also prepared a statement defending you and making it clear that anyone who attacks you answers to me. He spoke quickly, desperately. We can control the narrative, minimize the damage. Stop, Harper interrupted. Just stop. Dominic froze. That's exactly the problem, Harper continued. You're trying to fix everything, control everything, manage everything. But this isn't a business problem, Dominic. This is my life. I know. I'm sorry. I just wanted to protect you by fighting all my battles, by swooping in with lawyers and PR teams and the full weight of your resources. Harper's voice cracked. I don't need a savior. I need a partner. Dominic sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. You're right. I'm doing exactly what I promised not to do. I'm so used to solving problems with money and power that I forgot you never wanted that from me. Harper sat beside him, maintaining a careful distance. Tell me something. When you look at me, what do you see? He raised his head, those gray eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. I see someone brave enough to risk everything for what she believes in. Someone who makes beautiful things with her hands and fills a room with warmth just by existing. I see someone who saw me as a person when everyone else sees a bank account. I see the first woman I've loved since... double, quotes he stopped. 8. Since ever. I've dated, I've had relationships, but I've never felt like this. Like I'd give up everything if it meant keeping you safe. Like your happiness matters more than mine, he laughed bitterly, which is apparently exactly the problem. Harper's heart fractured and mended simultaneously. Dominic, I've spent the last 3 days thinking. About us. About the bakery, about what I'm willing to sacrifice and what I'm not. And I realized something. What? Running away from you because I'm scared isn't brave. It's just fear in a different costume. She took his hand. But staying with you while you treat me like a problem to solve isn't love. It's just another version of what Travis did, making me feel small, even when he thought he was helping. Dominic asked quietly. Tell me, and I'll do it. I want you to trust that I can handle things. I want you to ask before acting. I want you to remember that I've survived 29 years without a billionaire boyfriend. And I'll survive whatever comes next. She squeezed his hand. And I want you to believe that I'm choosing you not because of what you can provide, but because of who you are. The man who burns cookies and listens to jazz and visits his mother's grave, that's who I fell for. Dominic pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I'm so used to being alone that I don't know how to do this. But I want to learn. Teach me. We'll learn together, Harper whispered. But Dominic, this has to be real. Messy and imperfect and equal. It won't be another thing you manage. Never again, he promised. I swear. Fighting back together, the next morning, they held a press conference together. It was Harper's idea, and Dominic's team had protested loudly, but he'd overruled them. They stood in front of Sweet Maple Corner. Harper in her usual bakery attire, Dominic in jeans and a button-down, looking more relaxed than any public appearance he'd ever made. I'm Harper Blake, she began, reading from notes she'd written at 3 a.m. 2 months ago. I went to a charity gala hoping to save my grandmother's bakery. I approached a man I didn't know and asked for his help with something trivial and embarrassing. That man turned out to be Dominic Hayes, which I discovered in the most humiliating way possible. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Harper ignored them. Since then, I've gotten to know Dominic as a person. Not as a billionaire or a CEO, but as someone kind and funny and surprisingly terrible at baking. Someone who's been lonely in a way I understand. Someone who's trying to figure out how to live instead of just exist. She glanced at him. The articles about me suggest I'm calculating that I targeted him for money. The truth is, I mistook him for a hired escort and offered to pay him by the hour. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I'm not sophisticated. I don't move in elite circles. I run a small bakery that my grandmother opened in 1985. Most days I'm covered in flour and surviving on 3 hours of sleep. But I'm proud of what I've built, and I'm not ashamed of who I am. If that makes me unsuitable for Dominic's world, then his world has the problem, not me. She stepped back, and Dominic took her place. Everything Harper said is true. Including the escort part, he began, and the crowd laughed again. I'm not good at relationships. I'm not good at trusting people or letting them see the real me. But Harper looked past everything I've built, past the money and the company, and saw someone worth knowing. That's rare. That's precious. And I'm not giving it up because tabloids need a story. His expression hardened. As for the lies published about Harper, my legal team is pursuing action against everyone involved. But more importantly, I want to address the real issue here. Our culture treats wealthy men like prizes to be won, and ambitious women like threats to be eliminated. It assumes that any woman with a successful man must be manipulative, as if she couldn't possibly be interesting or valuable in her own right. He took Harper's hand. Harper doesn't need my money. Her bakery is thriving because she's talented and hardworking. She doesn't need my status. She has a community that loves her because she's generous and real. She doesn't need me at all. But I need her. I need someone who keeps me grounded, who reminds me what matters, who isn't afraid to call me out when I'm being an idiot. Which is often, Harper interjected, and Dominic grinned. Which is very often, he agreed. So here's what's going to happen. Harper and I are going to keep seeing each other. We're going to make mistakes and have arguments and figure this out as we go. And anyone who has a problem with that can direct their concerns to my legal team, because I'm done apologizing for being human. The press conference made every major outlet. Some mocked them. Some praised their honesty. But most importantly, the narrative shifted. Harper wasn't a gold digger. She was a woman who'd accidentally stumbled into something complicated and chosen to see it through. Dominic wasn't a naive mark. He was a man brave enough to pursue genuine connection in a world that commodified everything. The work begins, but press conferences didn't solve everything. Real life was messier. Harper's regular customers loved the sudden attention. New people flooded in daily, overwhelming her small staff. Dominic struggled to step back, fighting every instinct to throw money at problems. They had their first real fight 3 weeks. Later, when he suggested buying the building so Harper wouldn't have to worry about rent, "That's exactly what I told you not to do." Harper shouted, flour flying as she gestured wildly. "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it as an investment." Dominic shot back, and even he heard how ridiculous that sounded. They didn't speak for 2 days. Harper threw herself into work, baking until her hands cramped. Dominic buried himself in code, working on a project he'd been neglecting for months. But on the 3rd day, Harper showed up at his office unannounced, walked past 3 assistants trying to stop her, and found Dominic staring at his computer screen with the same expression she'd worn while kneading particularly stubborn dough. "I'm sorry I yelled," she said. "I'm sorry I tried to buy your building," he stood, moving around his desk. "I'm working on it, being patient, letting you handle things. It's just hard when I have the means to make your life easier, I know. But easy isn't always better." Harper stepped into his arms. "I need to know I saved this bakery myself. Not because a billionaire decided to help. Can you understand that? I'm trying. That's all I can ask." They developed a system. Before taking any action that might affect Harper, Dominic had to run it past her. Before making any major decision about the bakery, Harper had to at least tell Dominic, even if she didn't take his advice. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Sabotage, the real test, came 4 months into their relationship. Harper arrived at the bakery one morning to find the front window smashed, the interior ransacked, and her grandmother's original recipe book missing. The book that contained 40 years of perfected formulas, the foundation of everything Sweet Maple Corner had become. She called the police first, then Dominic. He arrived before the officers did, and the look on his face when he saw the damage made Harper's chest tighten. "I'm going to find who did this," he said quietly, dangerously. "Dominic, I'm not overstepping. I'm not taking over. But Harper, this crossed a line. Someone broke into your grandmother's legacy and destroyed it. I can't just stand by." Harper looked at the broken glass, the appended tables, the flowers scattered across the floor like snow. She thought about her grandmother's weathered hands teaching her to fold dough, about her mother laughing as they decorated birthday cakes, about 3 years of 18-hour days trying to keep this place alive. "Okay," she said, "but we do this together. No more swooping in and handling things without me." Dominic's security team found the culprits within 48 hours. Travis, unable to accept that Harper had moved on, had hired 2 men to vandalize the bakery and steal the recipe book, intending to sell the recipes to a competitor. The evidence was damning: text messages, payment records, even footage from a nearby security camera. Harper sat in the police station giving her statement and felt nothing but sad. Not angry, not vindicated, just tired. Travis had been so consumed by jealousy that he'd committed actual crimes. He'd damaged not just her business, but his own life, his career, his future. "Are you okay?" Dominic asked as they left. "Mostly it's just sad." He could have moved on, found happiness, but he got stuck in bitterness instead. She leaned into him. "Thank you for letting me handle the police interview myself. It nearly killed me not to jump in," he admitted. "But I'm learning." The recipe book was recovered. Travis faced charges for vandalism and theft. His firm quietly let him go, and his social circle evaporated overnight. Harper felt bad for about 5 minutes before remembering that he'd tried to destroy her livelihood out of spite. Growing together, summer arrived. The bakery stabilized, turning a profit for the first time in Harper's tenure. Rebecca Chen's legal work had resulted in a fair lease, and word of mouth from the press conference had created a loyal customer base. Harper hired 2 additional bakers, finally able to take a day off occasionally. Dominic, meanwhile, announced a major shift in Hayes Technologies' focus. The company would now dedicate 30% of profits to funding small businesses in underserved communities, providing resources and mentorship without demanding equity or control. His board protested. His shareholders grumbled. Dominic didn't care. "My father built this company to change lives, not just accumulate wealth," he told Harper one night as they cooked dinner in his kitchen. "I forgot that somewhere along the way, you reminded me. I didn't do anything. You showed me what it looks like to build something meaningful. To value people over profits. To fight for what matters." He kissed her temple. "You've changed my entire perspective." Harper smiled, flipping the vegetables she'd been sautéing. "And you showed me that asking for help isn't weakness. That letting people in doesn't mean losing yourself. That love can be partnership, not ownership." They'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Mornings at the bakery, Dominic helping until he had to leave for meetings. Evenings at his place or hers, cooking together, talking about their days, existing in comfortable silence. Weekends exploring the city, finding hidden restaurants and vintage bookshops and all the small joys they'd both been too busy to notice before. Harper met his sister Emma, a force of nature, who ran her nonprofit with terrifying efficiency and immediately declared Harper her favorite person. "You make him human again," Emma said during their first dinner. "I thought we'd lost him after Dad died." Dominic met Harper's friends, enduring hours of aggressive scrutiny from Jennifer and her partner Rachel, who grilled him like they were CIA agents vetting a security threat. He passed, apparently, because Jennifer hugged him and whispered, "Hurt her, and I have 12 different ways to make her life miserable that don't technically count as crimes." "Noted and appreciated," Dominic replied seriously, which made Jennifer like him even more. The proposal 8 months after their first meeting. Dominic took Harper back to the Metropolitan Celestial Hotel, She'd thought they were attending another charity gala, had worn the same borrowed navy dress because it felt symbolic. But when they arrived, the ballroom was empty except for a string quartet playing softly in the corner. "What's going on?" Harper asked as Dominic led her to the center of the floor. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" He pulled her into a dance position, moving with the same confident grace he'd shown before. "You said you needed someone like me. Someone who looked like they belonged in places like this." I was an idiot. "No, you were brave. You approached a stranger and asked for help. You took a risk on something uncertain." The music swelled, and Dominic spun her gently. "You thought I was an escort, which I'll never let you forget, by the way." Harper laughed, the sound echoing in the empty space. "I'll never live that down. Definitely not. But Harper, that night changed everything for me. You looked at me and saw a person worth talking to. Not a company or a bank account, just someone who might understand what it's like to feel out of place." He slowed their dance, his gray eyes searching hers. "These past 8 months, you've made me feel more alive than I've been in a decade. You've challenged me, frustrated me, made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. You've shown me what partnership really means." He released her hand and reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Harper's breath caught. "I'm not good at this," Dominic said, opening the box to reveal a stunning ring with a deep blue sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. "I've rehearsed 17 different speeches, and they all sounded like a board presentation. So I'm just going to tell you the truth." He took her hand, and she felt it trembling slightly. "Harper Blake, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're brave and kind and talented, and you make the world better just by being in it. I know I'm difficult. I know I have a tendency to try to fix everything. I know my world is complicated and sometimes overwhelming, but I promise to keep learning, to keep trying, to keep choosing you every single day." He dropped to one knee, and Harper felt tears streaming down her face. "Will you marry me? Not because I'm wealthy or connected, but because I'm just Dominic, and I'm completely in love with you." "Yes," Harper whispered. Then louder, "Yes. Absolutely yes."